Okay. Oh god, oh no. Please, not the drain, not the drain! Oh. In a world full of cash-grabby reboots and phoned-in Marvel movies,
Giant goats! Oh, look at...
I find more and more that I'm drawn to and delighted by any film that is strange, or at the very least, somewhat original. I respect commitment to a vibe, and so it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that I really enjoyed Saltburn. But a lot of people didn't, so let's talk about it. Saltburn is a 2023 psychological thriller and dark comedy written and directed by Emerald Fennell, best known for writing and directing Promising Young Woman.
We were kids!
If I hear that one more time.
It stars Barry Keoghan, who played Dominic in The Banshees of Inisherin.
You probably wouldn't ever want to, I don't know, fall in love with a boy like me, would you?
No, Dominic, I don't think so, love.
Oh, there goes that dream.
As Oliver Quick, a poor scholarship student who becomes enamored with his wealthy classmate Felix Catton, played by Jacob Elordi, who you may recognize from Euphoria or The Kissing Booth. The film takes place in 2006 to 2007 at Oxford University and at Saltburn, the wealthy country estate of the Catton family. It's an unsettling, twisty, erotic film that effectively subverts genre tropes and expectations and almost makes you pity the awful Catton family. It's a whirlwind of love, lust, pining, scheming, and transgression, all wrapped up in a deliciously elevated mid-aughts Tumblr aesthetic with a smattering of iconic 2000s fashions. Despite its vibes-forward approach, Saltburn features some surprisingly deep symbolism and themes. So let's work our way through the peculiar maze that is this divisive film as we unpack it. I went into Saltburn with very little prior information, and if you haven't seen it, I would recommend you do the same, because I am about to spoil everything, and the movie is a lot more fun if you don't know where they're going with it right away. Also, content warning for violence, death, and other mature themes. The initial conceit of Saltburn is deceptively simple. An awkward, lower-class boy befriends and becomes captivated by a handsome, wealthy classmate as he's introduced to a world of wealth and privilege that he longs to be a part of. It feels like a movie we've seen 1,000 times.
Regina's like the Barbie doll I never had. I'd never seen anybody so glamorous.
The weird thing about hanging out with Regina was that I could hate her, and at the same time, I still wanted her to like me. Same with Gretchen. The meaner Regina was to her, the more Gretchen tried to win Regina back.
Do you think he'll be jealous?
Honestly, I don't think I'll even fucking register.
And yet, from the beginning, there's something off about Oliver. The film opens with a voiceover as Oliver explains insistently that he loved Felix, but he wasn't in love with him.
I wasn't in love with him. I know everyone thought I was, but I wasn't.
Yeah, okay, sure, buddy. And of course, it's all set to a pining, idyllic montage. And this gives us a very important piece of information right away. Oliver is a lying liar face who lies. The montage is immediately followed by Ollie's arrival at Oxford. From his very first moments on campus, he's a bit of an outcast. The closest thing he has to a friend is Michael.
I'm Michael Gavey. I'm a genius.
This incredibly intense math kid.
Ask me a sum.
It's not like I don't believe you.
Please, come on. No, I believe.
Fucking ask me a sum then!
Michael has no filter and calls things as he sees them.
NFI, me and you. Not fucking invited.
He's honestly a bit of a dick. Poor, lonely Oliver watches the cool kids from afar. But his prospects improve when he bumps into Felix, who is moping about his bike having a flat tire. He's worried about being late to class, so Oliver lends him his bike.
Yeah, I'm already in it for skiving last week, so...
which Felix thanks him profusely for.
I love you, seriously. Okay. Thank you so much, mate. So kind.
Later, Felix cheerfully greets him at the pub.
Oh, there he is! Ollie! Oliver! Come here, mate!
And Ollie ditches Michael immediately. While Felix seems to like Oliver, he's the only one.
No one wants to sit next to fucking Oliver.
Why not?
Because he's a scholarship boy who buys his clothes from Oxfam.
His friends, especially his cousin Farley, played by Archie Midekwe, look down on him.
Hey, you're around, man. Yeah, go on, mate.
I should go to bed.
Wait, no. No, you can't sneak your way out of the ground.
Farley constantly makes snide comments to put Oliver in his place.
Yeah, the sleeves are too long. Always check the sleeves.
From the moment he first lays eyes on him, he seems to have a problem with him, though by the end of the film, it's hard to blame him. Throughout the movie, it's implied that Oliver is just Felix's charity case of the moment, and it's only a matter of time before he tires of him and casts him aside.
He'll get bored of you. Bootlicker.
Just as it seems like they were right, and Felix is pulling away.
I've got some revising to do. I think I might catch you later, yeah?
Oliver finds out his father died. He tells Felix, who reacts kindly.
Ollie, what's happened?
And shares a family funeral ritual with him.
So in my family, we have this tradition, right? When somebody dies, we write their name on a stone and we chuck it in the river.
It's the thought that counts.
You know, the first time I felt the inside of my mum's throat, I was 8. My dad told me I had to stick my fingers in to make her sick.
Oliver confides the rest of his troubled home life to Felix,
So home doesn't mean the same for me as it does for you, Felix.
who invites him to spend the summer at his family estate, Saltburn, so he won't have to go home.
Well, why don't you come home with me? Come to Saltburn.
Oliver agrees, and next thing we know, he's arriving at the gates of this absurd Bridgerton-looking mansion under the disapproving gaze of Duncan, the veteran head butler, who also has an instant disdain for him.
You're early.
I got the earlier train.
Well, do let us know next time. You see, the gates were not open.
Felix introduces both us and Ollie to Saltburn with a tour of the house, though the camera stays focused on Felix rather than the magnificent surroundings, just like Ollie's attention does. He tells Ollie they'll be sharing a bathroom.
Oh, by the way, we're going to be sharing a bathroom. I hope you don't mind. Otherwise, you'd be miles away on the other end of the house.
Which comes into play later in a memorable way. But we'll get to that. After settling in, Ollie seeks out the Catton family and overhears them discussing his tragic backstory.
Is that right? He had to put his fingers down his mother's throat to make her sick.
Farley, that's private stuff. Well, you told us.
Of which Felix has spared no detail. They immediately switch gears when he enters the room.
No, we were just talking about
Don't
you.
be silly. Farley, you just make up the most awful things. Of course we weren't.
And the family welcomes him to Saltburn,
Hello, Oliver, darling.
Oh, what beautiful eyes.
along with fellow charity cases, Farley, and poor dear Pamela,
This is my dear friend Pamela, who's been staying with us.
Hey.
played by Carey Mulligan, who also played Cassie in Promising Young Woman. The family is charming, despite their obvious superficiality.
Yeah, I told you it wasn't a minger.
Oh, but darling, you're kind about everyone. You can't be trusted.
That's the thing about this family, is that we all think we're armed against it. We all think we're not going to fall for this sort of thing. And then the moment you meet them, they just take your power away. And that's what Elspeth Catton does so effectively with her kind of like beam of attention.
Darling, tell me about your mother. How is she bearing up? Still drinking?
Stop.
Elspeth seems particularly taken with Oliver's tale of woe.
I've lost so many friends to addiction. So many. Dear, dear friends. It's the root of poor Pamela's horrors too, I'm afraid.
We also meet the patriarch of the family, Sir James, played by Richard E. Grant.
Do stop. The poor boy's only just arrived. Oliver, how good to finally meet you.
And Felix's sister Venetia, played by Alison Oliver, who looks at Ollie like she wants to eat him. The family surrounds him in a vulture moment, as Fennell describes it.
There's a sort of vulture moment when they're all on him all the time, desperate to get information about his tragic past. You know, they've all got a fetish for broken birds. They've all got a saviour complex.
Nothing shocks me, Oliver. Absolutely nothing. Tell me everything.
Both Felix and Elspeth insist that the vibe is relaxed.
No, just be yourself. They'll love you. It's relaxed, I promise.
Oh God, don't with the sirs. No, we can't stand anything like that here.
But it's the kind of place where people dress for dinner.
Dress for dinner?
Yeah, it's like black tie.
That night, Ollie sees Venetia outside his window. They have a sweet moment and he gives her a blanket, leaving himself seemingly vulnerable. She tells him,
I'm cold-blooded. We're all cold-blooded, haven't you noticed?
But he disagrees.
You're not cold-blooded. Your family's so kind to me.
Venetia leaves him with a reminder that he's not the first friend Felix has brought home to Saltburn.
You're so, real. I think I like you even more than last year's one.
Despite an awkward exchange over some eggs at breakfast.
Is everything okay, Ollie?
Of course, yeah, it's just runny eggs. I get a bit sick from them. So sorry.
Oliver lands on his feet and begins to adapt to life at Saltburn. We get a montage of him enjoying his time with Felix and the others. Yes, this movie has so many montages. There are also some little moments where he impresses the family, like with the bit with the Palissy plates.
Palissy plates?
Do you mean Bernard Palissy, the 16th century Huguenot ceramicist?
Which we see he skillfully manufactured.
Yes. Do you know him?
I've always loved his work, but I've never seen anything of his in real life.
And we're reminded that Ollie is a creepy little weirdo when we catch him spying on Felix in the bath while he's enjoying some alone time. Everyone focuses on what happens immediately after the spying, and justifiably so. But I think the way that Felix is framed, as Oliver voyeuristically observes him from the shadows, is also important. Oliver's desire is almost palpable as we get intense close-ups on Felix. The steam, the sweat, the little hairs on his neck. It's sensual, but we also feel like we should look away. It's the male gaze, but directed towards another man. After Felix finishes and goes to bed, Ollie descends on the bathtub and slurps up his cloudy bathwater. Listen, I get what they're trying to get across here, and I'm not even mad about the bathwater. But tonguing the drain is where I draw the line. Fennell said in an interview that she views this scene as deeply erotic rather than shocking and gross. Okay. Like, yes, drinking someone's bathwater is a meme on extreme desire. Sure. But it's also totally gross, and there's still an element of violation and transgression to it. This is not a healthy, normal sort of love. From this point, we see Oliver take more control over his dynamic with the family, starting with Elspeth. When they're alone and waiting for everyone else, he makes a pass at her.
Because you're so fucking beautiful.
But when she deflects, he pivots immediately and asks about Pamela, who's no longer at Saltburn.
What do you think Pamela will be wearing tonight?
What? Oh, Pamela's not here.
He assuages Elspeth's guilt over turning poor, dear Pamela away.
I know she's had a hideous time the past few years, but honestly, she did go on about it.
If all of it was true.
By implying that Pamela was lying about the perilousness of her situation.
Her stories today just seemed a bit inconsistent at times. I thought you noticed it too.
Oh yes, I had. Absolutely.
Elspeth instantly latches onto his interpretation.
I was feeling quite guilty about it this afternoon, but you're absolutely right. There was actually something quite sinister about her.
Because it allows her to feel good about herself. Elspeth is fascinating because she revels in gossiping about the intimate details of people's lives.
Okay. I have to admit, she's very beautiful. But it's only ever really been a curse. I mean, the men, Oliver, you wouldn't believe it. The latest one is some ghastly Russian billionaire, and she's been holed up here for months, hiding from him.
Strangers, friends, even her own daughter.
And then there's all the stuff with the food.
What stuff?
Well, fingers for pudding. We thought she'd grow out of it.
But she couches everything in feigned concern. She has an aversion to ugliness, both emotional and visual.
I have a complete and utter horror of ugliness, ever since I was very young. I don't know why.
Always preferring to conceal and avoid. That night, Oliver has an encounter with Venetia when she appears outside his window again. This time, the dynamic totally shifts. Oliver is confident, commanding. There's even this bit where he, tries to daddy-dom her out of an eating disorder.
So tomorrow, you're going to eat, and then you're going to stay at the table.
I hate it. She tries to discourage him from eating her out.
It's not the right time of the month.
Unless there's something you think I'm worried about.
But he's not perturbed.
It's lucky for you, I'm a vampire.
Real Edward Cullen hours with this guy?
I've never wanted a human's blood so much in my life.
And he's back in the tub in another moment of transgression as he submerges his blood-stained mouth. Cool. The next morning, Venetia doesn't stay at the table as instructed. Obviously. Oliver has clearly had less influence than he thought. Elspeth declares they should throw a fancy dress party for Oliver's birthday, and they settle on a Midsummer Night's Dream for the theme.
I can wear my suit of armor, Elspeth.
Farley tries to drive a wedge between Felix and Ollie by telling him about Venetia.
You stupid little boy.
When Felix asks him about it,
It's just slightly bad form, that's all. What's bad form?
What do you think? Getting with Venetia, Ollie?
Ollie just flat out denies it.
Farley said you two were practically eating each other.
Oh, and you believe him? Me and Venetia? Come on.
And Felix believes him.
Oh, thank God.
Felix reveals another friend fell out of his good graces after having a thing with Venetia.
I thought we had another Eddie situation.
And Oliver steers clear of her the next time she appears outside his window. Poor dear Pamela dies off screen.
God, I wish we didn't have to go to London.
I didn't know you were going to London.
Pamela's funeral.
And Elspeth's reaction is very on brand for her.
Am I dying?
She'd do anything for attention.
It turns out Pamela wasn't exaggerating after all.
We met in rehab, Tim. He was just so lovely at first, and then all of his business partners started sort of falling out of windows.
And she also clearly predicted her own demise.
Daddy always said I'd end up at the bottom of the Thames.
One evening, some of Sir James's friends, the Henrys, because so many of them are called Henry.
Dad's friends, they're all called Henry.
Not all of them, just most.
Come over for a dinner party. And we get another small moment where it's clear he doesn't understand how things are done with these people.
Venetia.
Me first.
I'm sorry.
You're on my left.
Of course.
Oliver struggles to fit in again.
Darling, save me.
There's a great scene where he tries to approach Farley by taking advantage of an argument he witnessed between him and Felix about money.
I mean, you do know how this looks. Making me come to you with a begging bowl?
What are you implying?
I think you know what I'm implying.
And uses it to try to cozy up to him.
Well, I know you're going through a hard time at home. I know how that feels.
Farley isn't falling for it, though, and embarrasses him by getting him to sing Rent by the Pet Shop Boys during karaoke.
I love you pay my rent.
Although Ollie does turn it around on him a bit, too.
This is your song as well, Farley. Come finish it. You took me to a restaurant.
That night, he sneaks into Farley's room to threaten him in a sexually charged encounter.
Are you going to behave from now on, Farley?
No.
Don't make me ask again.
Man, he's a weird little dude, but Farley seems to be into it.
I'm scare-roused.
Although Farley succumbing to Oliver, even for a second, does feel a bit out of character with everything leading up to this point so far. The next morning, Farley is accused of allegedly emailing Sotheby's to try and sell one of the Palissy plates.
He tried to nick something.
What are you talking about?
The family is furious and sends him away. With Farley gone, Oliver is feeling pretty comfortable at Saltburn. On his birthday, Felix proposes a road trip.
Morning, birthday boy.
Get dressed, we're going on a road trip.
And he's elated. Until he realizes they're en route to his home, where Felix discovers Ollie is a pathological liar when they pull up to a very nice, well-kept house, and Ollie's sweet mom and very alive dad come to the door to greet them. This scene is absolutely excruciating as Ollie's parents go on and on about all the obvious lies he's told them about Oxford.
He's the top scholar at Oxford.
The top scholar? God, he's so modest. You know, I had no idea.
And Felix begins to process the extent of Ollie's manipulation. To Felix's credit, he doesn't rat Ollie out to his parents or to the Cattons.
Can you not tell your family, please?
Of course not. Fucking hell, it's dark enough as it is.
But he is disgusted with him and wants nothing more to do with him.
It's just a stupid thing
No, it's
to say.
fucking weird. It's what it is, mate. Honestly, I don't even know where to start. I mean, you're a fucking liar, Ollie.
Ollie begs his forgiveness, but Felix tells him to go home after the party.
Felix, please, let me just explain.
I think the best thing is that you go home after your party.
Saltburn makes numerous literary references throughout the film.
Sounds like an even war novel.
You know, a lot of War's characters are based on my family, actually.
Particularly to Greek mythology and Shakespeare. The latter is given a nod during the tour.
Shakespeare's Folio.
And of course with the theme of Oliver's party, which is predictably lavish with over-the-top decorations, moody lighting, and loads of people, none of whom Oliver knows. He's dressed in a puckish ensemble with antlers, which may also reference another film where Barry Keoghan plays a weird little creep undermining a wealthy family, The Killing of a Sacred Deer. I personally wasn't a fan, but it's objectively well crafted and he is great in it.
It's the only thing I can think of as close to justice.
Referencing A Midsummer Night's Dream is a particularly interesting choice, considering that it's thought to have been written to be presented during a wedding as part of an aristocratic carnival. The Wikipedia page for the play includes a quote from David Wiles that states, "The audience who saw the play in the public theater in the months that followed became vicarious participants in an aristocratic festival from which they were physically excluded," stating that it demonstrates how closely the play is integrated with a historically specific upper-class celebration. This mirrors Oliver's provisional inclusion in the world of the Catton family. Though he isn't experiencing it vicariously, he is still excluded, an outsider looking in who will never actually belong. This is crystallized in a conversation with Farley, who Oliver is shocked to see has been welcomed back to Saltburn, when he appears next to him dressed as Bottom, complete with a donkey mask.
Have they seen you yet?
They'll go ballistic.
They invited me.
He tells Ollie he'll never be able to return to Saltburn because...
This place... You know, it's not for you.
And that he'll never be able to recapture this summer with Felix.
Oliver's once-in-a-lifetime golden big boy summer, but you don't get it back.
As if proving Farley right, there's a particularly brutal moment where everyone sings Happy Birthday, but no one remembers who the party is for.
Shit, I can't remember his name.
Ollie finds Felix, who is wearing wings that look strikingly like the ones that Juliet wears in Baz Luhrmann's 1996 film, and begs him to talk to him.
You can't ignore me forever.
I can try.
Felix, we need to talk.
But Felix is not having it.
Felix, come on.
Look, man, try to be nice. Can you fuck off and bother somebody else?
This is the moment that hardens Ollie's resolve, and leads to the downfall of the Catton family. Interspersed throughout the film are shots of Saltburn's intricate hedge maze, which dominates a portion of the grounds behind the house.
It was really important to me that it was a real workable maze. I read about a man named Adrian Fisher, who's the world's foremost, and I think only, maze designer. I just had 2 stipulations. There were 2 ways of getting into the centre of the maze. One should be the hardest maze he's ever designed, and then the other is the cheat's route.
At its centre is a towering Minotaur statue. Oliver tracks down Felix again beneath the statue and drunkenly pleads with him one last time.
Can't you throw me away?
Get the fuck away from me!
Look, I just gave you what you wanted! Everyone puts on a show for Felix.
But Felix makes it clear he will never forgive him.
Do you understand how much I fucking love you?
I don't know what you are, but I do know you. You make my fucking blood run cold.
Oliver leaves, seemingly dejected.
I think you should go to bed.
I don't care what you think anymore.
The next morning, Felix's body is found in the maze. We don't ever really see it, just the top of his head and his wings, but somehow he looks so small. Sir James's reaction to the discovery is particularly heartbreaking.
Just need to get him warmed up. Felix, darling, where's your jumper?
Some have read Oliver as a representation of the Minotaur. In Greek myth, the Minotaur is a half-bull, half-man spawned by the god's revenge on King Minos of Crete when they had his wife procreate with a prize bull he refused to give in offering. The Minotaur kills young men and women who are sent into the maze as sacrifices. This sounds more like Felix, with his parade of downtrodden friends he traipses through Saltburn and then casts aside. Oliver reads to me as Theseus, who slays the Minotaur, although he is certainly no hero. In the aftermath, we see the different ways the family reacts to Felix's death. Elspeth and Sir James handle it in a very English way.
Oliver, darling, why don't you tell us about last night?
Last night?
Did you have a lovely time?
By trying to have lunch as if nothing has happened.
I don't normally like chocolate cake.
Yes, it can be cloying, can't it?
Although there are these horrible, sad, comedic moments where Duncan interrupts because the police can't find their way through the maze.
They keep getting lost in the maze. May I send one of the gardens to assist us?
Fine.
Or he needs to close the curtains while the coroner moves the body.
What now?
May I be permitted to close the curtains, sir? The coroner's outside.
Yes, thank you.
There's a bit where he struggles with the drapes while trying to get them closed.
Cold hands, apparently. You have to have cold hands.
I've heard. So the butter doesn't melt.
The family is frustrated with him.
Duncan! Just get them closed, for Christ's sake!
Yes, sir.
He apologizes, and for a moment we see his grief all over his face as he tries to remain composed.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
It is a beautiful performance by Paul Rees.
You know, he will have been there for whole of Felix's life, and me and Paul talked a lot about how much he loved him.
Everyone tries to ignore the sick squeaking of the gurney as it passes. Farley has a bit of a breakdown.
We haven't finished lunch.
Wait, you want me just to eat it like nothing's happening?
What else is there to do, darling?
Which sets Sir James off.
Ollie! Will you be quiet? Sit down and eat the bloody pie! You're not the only person here with feelings. None of us wants your bloody American feelings.
Farley turns on Oliver and asks what he's still doing there.
I think it's delicious.
What the fuck are you still doing here? Does no one else find it weird?
And Oliver gets him kicked out again. This time presumably for good, by revealing he was on drugs when Felix died.
I would feel guilty too.
Guilty?
If I was the one racking up lines the night someone died.
Venetia numbly guzzles wine as the scene unfolds.
Search Farley's wrong.
Yes.
No.
I won't mention this to the police. That's all you'll get. Ever again.
I think Venetia represents Ariadne, Minos' daughter and the sister of the Minotaur, who falls in love with Theseus, but is ultimately abandoned by him. Sir James represents King Minos, who is betrayed by Theseus, who takes both the Minotaur and Ariadne from him. Elspeth likely represents Pasiphae. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Minos' wife, who is often framed as being cursed by beauty, which nicely relates to Elspeth's distaste for anything she deems as ugly.
I have a complete and utter horror of ugliness, ever since I was very young. I don't know why.
To the extent that she represses and twists anything negative.
I think it was a hit, don't you, darling?
Oh yes, a triumph.
Yes, the house looked good, didn't it?
Beautiful.
After Farley is banished, Oliver and the family attend a funeral for Felix. And they throw a stone in the water for him. Presumably, after everyone else has gone home, Oliver has a moment alone with Felix's grave. It's a gesture that's sad, futile, and even pathetic, as Emerald Fennell describes it. It's intended to mirror a scene in Wuthering Heights, where Heathcliff digs down to Catherine's grave in an act of gothic romance steeped in death, desperation, and need. Later, Oliver retrieves Felix's stone from the water in another attempt to possess him. Things move pretty quickly after the funeral. Elspeth asks Oliver to stay.
You're not going anywhere, Oliver, darling.
I was just going upstairs.
You're not leaving Saltburn.
Even though his ongoing presence at Saltburn feels more inappropriate by the minute, Oliver walks in on Venetia in the bath, and she lets him know that she sees him.
I saw you sobbing in the church at the funeral. I watched you weeping away, and I just felt so sorry for you. And I remembered.
She reminds him he only actually knew Felix for 6 months.
You hardly knew him, Ollie. You have nothing to do with him, with us, with here.
And she tells him he's like a moth.
Drawn to shiny thing, patting up against the window.
She smells Felix's aftershave on him and says,
"Oh my God, you ate him right up and you licked the fucking plate."
Which reminds us of Ollie's earlier proclamation of vampirism.
It's lucky for you, I'm a vampire.
The next morning, we see Venetia in a tub full of blood, which I'm not going to show because it's pretty graphic. But it adds to the vampire element and how blood was central to their initial encounter as well. With Venetia gone, Sir James asks Oliver to leave.
I think it's time, Oliver, for you to go home discreetly tonight. It would be best if the family was able to grieve in private.
And he refuses.
Just don't think I can leave her in this state.
You won't go.
I don't see how I can.
Taking advantage of Elspeth's desire to keep him around.
How much for you to leave and never come back to cease all contact with my wife?
Why?
Because we all have to move on.
It's not until Sir James offers him a check that we see Ollie finally leave Saltburn, inauspiciously through the servants' entrance. We cut to a few years later, sometime after the pandemic began based on the masked waiter in the background. Ollie sits in a trendy cafe working on his laptop and, by totally random chance, bumps into Elspeth. As they greet each other, we're also shown Oliver reading Sir James's obituary.
I read the news about Sir James. I'm so dreadfully sorry.
I was surprised he waited so long, in a way.
Elspeth is pleased to see him and invites him back to Saltburn.
Come up and stay. At Saltburn. Coast is clear now, isn't it?
We cut to a few months later and find out that the voiceover has actually been Oliver confessing to Elspeth, who is now withered and barely resembles the flighty former model from the start of the film. She, too, has been consumed.
I loved him. By God, I loved him. Sometimes. I hated him.
And we get a final montage showing all the deceptive things Oliver has done up to this point, before he pulls the plug.
I hated all of you. And you made it so easy.
Some of it was obvious in the moment, like setting up Farley. But the real stunner is the reveal that he popped Felix's bike tire to manufacture their first meeting. I think this can be interpreted in two ways. Either Ollie was always out for blood, and this was his plan from the start, or it was just an attempt to manufacture a connection with Felix that spun out of control as he piled on lies and manipulations to keep him interested, and then became enraged when it all came crashing down. Fennell's intention was the latter, which makes sense considering Oliver didn't start killing people until he was absolutely certain that Felix wasn't going to forgive him. Everything afterwards is an effort to possess Felix and the Cattons. It's very, if I can't have you, no one can. The film ends with Oliver dancing naked through the house to Murder on the Dance Floor, in a long take that inverts the tour from the start of the movie. Ultimately, Farley was right that Oliver could never recreate the summer he spent at Saltburn with Felix. Almost a Ship of Theseus situation, in that the house is the same and not the same. He's alone in a vast, empty mansion with only memories of the time he spent there with Felix. His obsession has amounted to a hollow reminder of what he actually wanted, but could never have. Connection. I've seen a lot of criticism leveled at Saltburn claiming it's style over substance and doesn't have enough to say. And while I can agree this movie isn't for everyone, I think the emphasis on style is intentional.
Because this is a film about our obsession with beauty, our kind of fetishization of stuff.
Like Oliver, we're supposed to be caught up in the beguiling, shallow world of Saltburn. We are supposed to love the Catton family.
You know, he's our way into this world, and so it was important for us, the audience, to desire and understand and love this family, this person, this place, as much as Oliver did. And I think the thing is with the Catton family, Felix included, is that they had to have this sort of completely disarming charm.
But then, of course, Common People came out, and everybody thought it was written about me, which was completely mortifying. But she came from Greece. She had a thirst for knowledge. It couldn't have been me. I'd never wanted to know anything.
Despite what terrible people they are.
Do you have cufflinks, though? No. That's all right, we'll get it sorted. I'll get you some.
Felix does something shitty or callous or capricious or spoilt or misogynistic or gross every scene, and people leave the theatre and say, he's so nice, he was so nice, and you're like, but he wasn't.
And part of that is understanding why Oliver is so seduced by them.
He's not nice, he's just beautiful.
The visuals also aren't without purpose, often tying into larger themes.
Kind of push in through Felix snogging a girl, and it's a sort of red room, side lit from one practical light, and it's got this kind of still life arranged around them, almost, you know, like these sort of beautiful little glinting things that you might have in any of those sort of Renaissance paintings. But then when you look closely, all the things that are picking up the light are Red Bull cans and old packets of crisps, and it's sort of junk, but altogether it makes something beautiful and composed. And I think that's the thing of filmmaking that's so thrilling, is that, you know, you look once and it's beautiful, and you look again and it's disgusting.
For example, there's a reference to a story about a sighting of Percy Shelley's doppelganger appearing in front of a window right before he drowned.
Shelley walked past a window and waved at her. So she waved back before she realised that Shelley was in Italy.
Stop, I won't.
A few hours later, he drowned.
And a doppelganger of Felix walks past the window behind him. We see mirrors and reflections used frequently throughout the film to show doppelgangers of Ollie in the different versions he presents to people versus his true self. Windows and watching someone through them as an expression of voyeurism also come up frequently, but also represents Ollie's nature as an outsider on the other side of the glass looking in. The lush cinematography and detailed set design highlights the juxtaposition between the mundane stuff of living intermixed with the luxurious historic surroundings.
Always, which is my obsession, is gubbins. The stuff of life, like the clutter of life that even if you live in a house like this, you have.
Fennell deliberately wanted to create the impression that there was a messy casualness to the way people with this kind of wealth inhabit their surroundings.
Cigarettes, always. Everyone's chain smoking. Diet Coke, empty. There's nothing to me that's more satisfying than seeing like this tapestry, which is £30,000 worth of kind of Flemish tapestry, and then shit in front of it. That's how something becomes alive.
Because they have nothing to prove. We see this in things like Felix's messy dorm room at Oxford, or the flypaper hanging in the chandeliers at Saltburn. Despite the messiness, every frame of this film could be a painting. Saltburn is also a character in and of itself. Even the name sounds evocative and caustic. And a Saltburn is something that can actually happen to you. The house is beautiful and imposing in a way that feels like it'll swallow you up. It's also built for voyeurism, as old British country houses like these are designed for staff to always be on the fringes to anticipate the residents' needs.
It's how these houses operate, is there are eyes everywhere, and that's why it's kind of so thrilling. It's why it's got this sort of inbuilt voyeurism.
There's only ever an illusion of privacy.
So what happens is your bag's unpacked by one of the maids. It's the sort of little details of how the house works, you know? And then anything that she finds in there will make its way probably to Duncan.
A lot of thought went into ensuring that we see the scale of the house.
This is a really, really good example of why the aspect ratio works. You can see the height of this. The house is very tall and square. We didn't want to be cutting off all the beautiful frescoes on the ceilings. The squarer ratio made it just much easier to shoot just from a practical point.
Fennell specifically sought out an estate that hadn't been filmed before and stumbled on the perfect house on her first day of location scouting.
This house has never been seen in anything. Ever. There are no photographs of it on the internet.
She fell in love with it when she saw expensive marble busts that the owners used to keep hats on.
The moment I knew that this was Saltburn was that they had hats on the busts.
Which do appear in the film as well. It gives us the austere, old money vibe that suffocates you and sneers at attempts to imitate it, while still somehow feeling lived in. This is partially expressed through Felix's tour, which is riddled with personal details and anecdotes.
Red staircase. I accidentally fingered my cousin here.
But is mostly dismissive of the rich history of the house.
Goes to Granny. Hi, Granny. Actually, the bed still has some of Henry VIII's spunk on it.
It's just not interesting to him because he's always surrounded by it.
Dead Rellies, Daddy's old Teddy, Shakespeare's folio, and mace.
The same thing is expressed in the costuming by Sophie Canal.
With Felix, it was just this idea that he's the worst dressed person in the world because he's so handsome, he actually doesn't need to dress well.
Felix's day-to-day is casual, with slouchy Ralph Lauren tees, wrinkled linen shirts, and a Live Strong bracelet as he walks around Saltburn barefoot.
So he's always wearing, actually he looks, as of course, completely adorable, an enormous lemon yellow wrinkled shirt, which I think, he's probably just had underneath his bed.
He's generally poorly dressed and rumpled because, again, he's never had to make an effort. This contrasts with Ollie's slightly too new, preppy academic style that feels like he bought a whole new wardrobe all at once. He never looks comfortable or at ease the way Felix does. The rest of the cast is a treasure trove of perfectly recreated aughts trends, from the little mini dresses we often see Venetia and Annabelle wearing, to Elspeth's designer bohemian style. They searched high and low for authentic pieces, digging in the backs of people's closets and hunting things down on eBay, resulting in a look that evokes the era perfectly. We also see this contrast during the party scene, where Sir James pairs seemingly historic armor pieces with an ordinary modern suit, while Elspeth is dressed in a gold Valentino gown as Titania, the Queen of the Fairies, although someone on Twitter pointed out it's actually from the 2018 collection. During that scene, Ollie is wearing a coat that Elspeth would have picked out for him, embroidered with oak leaves and secret moths to reference Venetia's later comments. The inclusion of antlers likely is also there to symbolize Oliver's presentation as prey, despite his nature of being a predator. And we see this in the way he's shot throughout the movie. At the start of the film, Ollie is often shot in a way that makes him seem small, insignificant. But as the film goes on, the angles and the way in which we see Ollie shifts completely. Felix's costume is extremely low effort, just like everything he wears. Just a pair of store-bought Juliet wings with a tank top and what looks like Hollister or Abercrombie jeans. Although the wings may also reference Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, causing his wax wings to melt and send him plummeting back to Earth, like Felix does when he discovers Ollie's deception. I can see why some people hate this movie, and its unpleasant emptiness and weird erotic moments. I can also understand that it almost seems like we're supposed to be on the Catton's side, and that rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
From the beginning, Oliver obviously doesn't like Felix, doesn't like Farley, doesn't like the kind of thing that they represent, they're entitled. It was really important that when we met Felix, that suddenly we all had the same experience of, oh, he's really nice. There's a kind of against our will feeling of falling for him too.
Personally, the way I see it, Oliver is the kind of psychopath that manages to get rich by doing whatever it takes.
Accidents are for people like you. For the rest of us, there's work. And unlike you, I actually know how to work.
He has a shallow affect and lacks any real ability to connect with people, constantly trying to give them what he thinks they want. The Cattons have been so wealthy and so privileged for so long, they don't see him coming.
And you made it so easy. Spoiled dog sleeping belly up. No natural predators.
And their inability to really engage with reality prevents them from doing anything to stop him before it's too late. I don't see it as a cautionary tale about the middle class, but rather a warning that wealth and status and its pursuit create the worst version of people, a vacuous and contagious emptiness that eats everyone it touches from the inside out. Saltburn is by no means a masterpiece, but there's a mid-aughts trashiness and absurdity to it that makes it irresistible to me.
So you always have that feeling that, that you're in a painting, but you're in the world of kind of 2007 too, that it's always, what I always felt was that it always needed to be beautiful, but also a bit shit.
The soundtrack, though on the nose at times, is a fun burst of nostalgia.
I'm feeling rough, I'm feeling wrong.
Watch out, the pistols, mate! And is complemented by a score by Anthony Willis, inspired by the British coronation hymn. It's a film with a lot of love, attention to detail, and tongue-in-cheek pretentiousness with a silliness it braces unabashedly. Whether you love it or hate it, it's doubtful you'll forget it. But that's just my opinion. What did you think about Saltburn? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos. See you next time. Wiedersehen.